Okay, so I started recording, and Jai Shri Mandaran, Jai Shri Krishna, and we are continuing to study the Gita. And after chapter 6, we are starting chapter 7.
I think, Mataji, what's really interesting before we start chapter 7 is perhaps looking at the key theme of chapter 6 is really interesting because, and again, before we start chapter 7, there was one question that I had about chapter 6, which effectively, obviously at the very beginning, Krishna, at the beginning of chapter 6, the first half is the knowledge, and then it's the application of knowledge thereafter. And what's interesting is the term meditation and focus.
Yeah.
And as it so happens, and then obviously that brings in the term Krishna consciousness, living in Krishna consciousness.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, what's really interesting is when I read your Bhagavad Gita purport, as I was doing the other night, you talked very nicely about something that really made sense, which is the fact that what does it mean to live focusing on Krishna all the time? Because people, and you really emphasize the point that look, people have duties to do. They have to focus on the job, getting the job done. And you mentioned that in the Mahabharata, a few chapters after the Bhagavad Gita, the talk about Krishna disappeared, and it was mainly about the philosophy. The talk of the purely philosophical talk disappeared, and the talk was about the battle.
But even while Krishna is talking in the Bhagavad Gita, the entire Bhagavad Gita is meant to encourage and support and inspire Arjuna to fight.
Yes.
Exactly. Not to just, become an armchair philosopher or, some kind of,
But what was interesting was that you said, look, after a few chapters in the Mahabharata, all the armchair philosophy was replaced by Krishna and Arjuna discussing the job that needs to be done.
Yeah.
And that was important. And then you said, which was really important, was that, look, in real life, we all have duties to do. And you mentioned specifically an example, which is the housewife who is devoted to her family, but still has material jobs, duties to do at home.
Yeah.
So what she will do is, because she has the family at the back of her mind, she will do those material duties like cleaning the house, making sure everything's done, cooking the food. That's done with extra effort and care.
Yeah.
Because she has her welfare of the family at the back of the mind. So therefore, she's applying herself even better in what appears to be material duties. So on that note, that makes sense because you can live your life in a Krishna conscious way, yet still be very much part of the world, applying yourself to your daily duties.
Yeah, of course.
And do you think that summarizes in many respects chapter 6? I wonder what you thought.
Yeah, well, that's what Krishna says. Yat karoshi yad asnasi yad juhosi tadasi yat. Whatever you do, yat karoshi. So, whatever you do basically includes everything. Including the eating, and everything else. Again, Krishna will explain that the Sthita Pragya, although he's so, engaged in all sorts of activities, he's always conscious of the actual reality, which is a transcendental reality. Then we can, if we understand the concept of lila in the activities of Ishvara, we can also engage ourselves in the lila, in our own life. What is lila? Lila means performing activities that are externally manifested in order to accomplish a certain mission. And Krishna is saying very clearly what is the mission. But there are so many other corollary, subservient, supporting activities that are not the direct ones. But that is also part of the mission. So even as you were mentioning, apparently menial and ordinary material activities such as, cleaning and, cooking and stuff like that, they're part of the direct devotional service because they serve the entire, mission. Just like when you do, usually people can, consider devotional service, seva, like the worship of the deity. Okay, that is something that people can actually, easily see as direct devotional activity. But the worship of the deity includes cleaning the arti plate, includes cleaning the floor, includes, so many other, supporting activities that don't look like actual devotional service, but they are.
Like Chaitanya did that with the Jagannath temple, didn't he? He used to clean the temple.
That was the Lila. That was a Gundicha Marjana. Yeah. It's a famous one. Yeah, famous Lila. Yeah, and the definition of devotional service is the consciousness. It's not the specific activity that you perform. It's a consciousness.
Because you can always tell in life who's doing their work just by going through the motions and who's actually, doing their work with a different level of consciousness. You can always tell you can always distinguish the spirit.
Yeah, we can see how selfish or selfless they are. How intelligent, how realized, how dedicated and sincere they are. Because it shows, especially when we are sincere. If we are not sincere, it's difficult for us to see, if others are actually honest or not. That's why Satyam is very important. Because if we are very careful never to tell lies, the Satyam is considered the most important pillar of Dharma. And we can see Yudhishthira, who's, the son of Dharmaraj. When Krishna told him, to tell a lie, he was completely, flabbergasted. Was completely confused and he didn't have he couldn't understand. Now, the point is, what Yudhishthira was exhibiting was a more literal understanding of the concept of the principle, while we need to have a broader vision of the principles of Dharma.
Yeah, you mentioned that when, if a criminal was trying to harm a child.
Yes, precisely.
Is that child in your house? You would say, yes, the child in my house. And
that wouldn't be dharmic. Yeah,
it has to be interpreted in the context of the situation.
Exactly. Desha Kalapat.
Wonderful. And that takes us nicely to chapter 7. And before we
applied knowledge.
Now, before we start, it's really important, Mataji, that you dismantle some of the misconceptions and preconceived ideas. And when you first start reading chapter 7, the neophyte is overcome by Krishna describing himself in all these different forms. And sometimes you think, oh, what's the point? So, you know, in a sense, you sometimes think, why is this happening? Why is there such elaborate descriptions of so many things? And I'd love to see this explained in the proper context, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, so so we go again, as we have done for chapter 13. We are summarizing the various chapters in the first 3 chapters, then fourth chapter from 4:15 to 4:33 to 5:2 and 5:28. Then we have the 6th chapter. And in the 7th chapter, Krishna will speak much more about himself and his supreme nature, with only one exception, when he does not mention himself. This focus on Krishna Bhakti becomes so important that while previously he spoke about detachment as the key to success, now he's speaking about attachment to him as the key to success on a higher level. Then from 7:8 to the end of the chapter, we clearly see that Krishna is not an ordinary material personality, but an extraordinarily deep level of consciousness that can be found in this world as the essence and support of everything that exists. However, not everybody is able to perceive Krishna because one needs to turn to him with an open mind. It becomes clear, therefore, that vijnana is equivalent to the supreme level of transcendental consciousness that we call Krishna consciousness, the complete and constant awareness that encompasses Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan, and includes all realities, material and spiritual. By directly connecting to this supreme consciousness, the yogi attains the highest position and the perfection of life. Okay, so now when Krishna has spoken about the meditation, and now we are getting more specific on how to meditate. Now, before Krishna was explaining, okay, you find a proper seat, you face north and stuff, Now, okay, we are coming to the point. You meditate on what? Okay. Then we go, verse 1, and verse 2. I will tell you in detail that jnana and vijnana, knowing which nothing remains still to be known. Okay, so the yoga of applied knowledge. Among thousands of human beings, one may strive for perfection, and among all those who have achieved such perfection, one may actually come to know me. Yeah, this we need to really understand this verse, because sometimes it can be badly misunderstood.
These wonderful verses, particularly that last one.
Which one? The number 2? Number 1?
Yeah. No, the one that you just said now.
Number 3, number 2, or number 3?
Yes. Yes, both 2 and 3.
Okay, 2. Okay, so the verse 2. I will tell you in detail, jnana, I will explain the jnana and vijnana, this jnana and vijnana, knowing which nothing remains still to be known. Because jnana and vijnana are practically all the knowledge. So, of course, after you know all the knowledge, what you have to know. You have the entire knowledge. So the vijnana yoga is a yoga of applied knowledge.
That's really interesting, Mataji, because obviously when people conventionally think of knowledge, they think of knowledge as just being, I'm going to read a book, and then it's all going to go in my head. Whereas here, there's a clear distinction between knowledge and applied knowledge.
Yeah.
Could you explain what that looks like, Mataji, to the neophyte?
Yeah, we already saw in chapter 13, if you remember verses 8 to 12, Krishna is explaining knowledge not as a bookish learning or scholarship, but as the understanding of the realities, of the spiritual and the material world. But still, that is theory. Because when Krishna said, you remember, Krishna was saying that, let me see if I can find it easily. Chapter 13. We have the, okay, no, it's not, let me see if I can find easily or not, but in any case, we can, no. We can go and check, but okay, let me go and check. So, chapter 13, and when we have 13, 8 to 12. Okay, here. This is from 8 to 12. Krishna is explaining what is jnana. Okay, so it's a freedom from the desire for honors, lack of arrogance, freedom from hatred, as well as tolerance, simplicity, the act of approaching the charya, cleanliness, determination, self-control, renunciation towards the objects of the senses, freedom from the sense of doership, the clear perception of the inherent sufferings and problems of birth, death, old age, and disease, freedom from attachment, detachment from all association, including the sense of belonging towards children, wife, home, etc., an equal attitude when receiving the pleasant and the unpleasant, totally and constantly focusing on me, by the way, through Bhakti Yoga, performing service in a solitary place without attachment for meeting others, the constant awareness of the original soul, the realization of the value of knowledge, all this is called jnana. So, but this is still theoretical. These are models. How we apply these models is we have to attain the transcendental level. We have to realize Brahman, Atman Brahman, Paramatma Bhagavan. When we actually realize transcendence, all these aspects of knowledge become natural. It's like the Vaidhi Bhakti and the Raganuga Bhakti. The sadhana bhakti, we know what we want to do. The Raganuga Bhakti, we are already there. We don't need to make an effort to do all this stuff.
So what you're saying, Mataji, is that when you realize the self, these attributes become natural. They are not, they don't actively, it's not like ticking a box. Oh, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
What you're saying is that when you realize the self and the true nature of the self, and what we actually are as a constitutional position.
And when we realize that we are Brahman and we are parts and parcels of Bhagavan, yes.
Those you don't then have to try.
Exactly. Yeah, that's applied knowledge. Yeah. That's vijnana. That's why,
that makes complete sense.
Yeah, that's why that kosha is called Vijnana Maya Kosha. Jnana Vijnana Maya Kosha, because that's our nature. It's not something that we are striving to do. It's something that we already are. This is the difference between Jnana and Vijnana. It's not that Jnana is just bookish knowledge, and the Vijnana is like, okay, I practice what I preach. It's more than that. Jnana is never just bookish knowledge. not even just jnana. Because Krishna is not mentioning, studying books. And still he's talking about jnana. But
so
it's,
what you're saying is that the applied knowledge is the real understanding that we are.
Yeah, the realization. We see directly.
So when one realizes that we are Atman, it's not as if you have to try to see people with equal vision. It's not as if you...
Exactly, you already see them because you see that they're all amsa. Mama ivamsu jiva loke. You don't have to say, okay, we're all the same. No, you see it. You see that every existence, every being is part of the Supreme.
So in reality, equanimity is the effect of Atman realization.
Yes, the real equanimity. But we need to practice that before we realize it. Without theoretical knowledge, we cannot apply what we apply. If we don't have the theoretical knowledge, how can we turn it into practically applied knowledge? We don't have it.
Yes.
If you don't have rice, you cannot make rice pudding.
Yes.
It doesn't matter if you think that you are transcendental, you're not going to do it. Because we have to start with theoretical knowledge. If we don't have theoretical knowledge, what are we doing? We are just doing speculation. We're just going on, on opinions, either our opinions or the opinions of others. And this is where lots of people get confused because they think that jnana and vairagya are obstacles on the path of bhakti.
Please explain that. What's the misconception that they have?
Yeah, the misconception is that some people, again, who don't, as Bhaktivedanta used to say, with a poor fund of knowledge, they see the idea that jnana and vairagya are not sufficient for realization. And they think that jnana and vairagya are actually obstacles to realization, so they condemn them. They ridicule them. They reject them. Because they convince themselves, they delude themselves into thinking they're already transcendental just because they have decided to identify themselves as devotees of Krishna.
Right.
They think, I'm already a devotee. Among, like we were seeing before, in chapter 7, when we were reading here, among thousands of human beings, one may strive for perfection. And among all those who have achieved such perfection, one may actually come to know me. So these deluded people, they think that because they are sectarian, because of their sectarian allegiance to a sampradaya or an organization or a political position, that they declare that they are, devotees of Krishna, they are already on that position, higher than thousands and thousands and thousands of human beings, just because they identify in a sectarian manner as devotees of Krishna.
It has echoes of salvation ideology.
Yep, the chosen people. Yep.
You are saved simply because you believe in...
Yeah, exactly. You think, you believe, therefore you are saved. You believe, you accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior, so you are perfect now.
Exactly. Whereas in Sanatana Dharma,
Yeah.
We don't have salvation ideology. In that sense, we have to have the knowledge, and then we have to have the applied knowledge.
Yeah.
And that's really, really important.
Exactly.
You're not saved simply because you declare yourself to be
a
devotee.
In Bhakti, faith, Shraddha, is only the beginning. It's not the all in all. The beginning, the middle, and the end. That faith is not sufficient. The amount of faith that we need on the path of Bhakti, Yoga, Tantra, Vidya, Dharma, whatever, is only the initial amount that allows us, enables us to actually listen, to actually make an effort to understand and to put it in practice. But that's all. While in the Abrahamic ideas, you just need the faith, nothing else. You don't need the knowledge. In fact, the less knowledge you look for, the better it is for you. Yeah.
Exactly. The real danger of that approach as well is the misinterpretation of the term Vinashaya Dushkritam, which Dushkritam is not people who are in your sect or in your group. These are the wrongdoers.
The miscreants. In fact, that is even more evident in the translation, for example, in the Italian language, where miscreant is actually has been translated by the BBT as non-believers. Because miscredenti is not the equivalent of miscreants. It's what they call false friends in the translation job. That words that seem to be the same, like similar, have the same meaning of similar words in another language. That happens in all languages. Like, for example, one very funny one is English and Spanish. So when in Spanish you find someone, a woman who says "estoy embarazada," then you translate "I'm embarrassed," and that's not the meaning, because in Spanish, embarazada means pregnant.
Right.
Which is like, what? No, I'm not pregnant. I'm just embarrassed. That's a different thing. And in Italian, there is another big one with the English apparent equivalent. The English word trivial. Trivial. Yeah. And somehow in the development of cultures, in Italian, the word has taken a very negative meaning, meaning vulgar, degraded, something. When in English, trivial just means, ordinary, simple.
Trivial doesn't necessarily imply a negative connotation.
Exactly. It has no negative content whatsoever. It's just, a small thing, an unimportant thing. But if you translate trivial into the Italian triviale, people will think, whoa, so degraded, so bad,
Right.
Because the translation is a tricky business.
Fine. I would be careful to use the word trivial when using the word trivial with my Italian friends.
Yeah, because maybe they know the meaning. It's not that all Italian people, have make this kind of mistake, but it's possible. It's possible.
Yes.
possible.
So that was a really good descriptive of verse 2. And verse 3 is very intriguing. I'd love to hear your take on that, because again, this is a famous verse that somehow doesn't quite get the right meaning across when you read various translations. It'd be great to hear your take on that, basically.
Yeah, because, again, when the translation and explanation are presented by people who are still very much identified with the material body and mind, and therefore they become sectarian. And if they have not exactly come to know Krishna in truth, then we have a problem.
Yes.
And Krishna is saying, Janma karma chamedevyam evam yo vetti tattvataha. If someone actually knows my birth and duties and activities, but that doesn't mean that you just read the Krishna book and that then makes you free from rebirth. So that doesn't work like that, because you just have the externals. You just know, okay, Krishna was born in Mathura, there was Vasudeva and Devaki and this and that, but that's just the appearance, the package. Krishna did this and that, so he went to Vrindavan, he killed all the asuras, blah, 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 blah. But that's not sufficient. We need to actually understand. Yeah.
So Mataji, this is really interesting, because there is this concept. The critics, the Abrahamic critics, I mean, forget that, but you know what I mean, the critics would say,
sure.
Well, are you saying that Krishna is so aloof from the average person? Because, hardly anyone knows me in truth. Thousands of thousands, one may endeavor for perfection, and those who achieve perfection, hardly anyone knows me in truth. So people might say, well, what is the point of God if you don't know him in truth? Because what would be the rebuttal to that matter?
No, the point is that we have to come to actually know God. That's the point, because if we really understand God, we understand ourselves. If we really understand ourselves, then we will understand God. The point is that if we project our material limitations on God, we are not understanding ourselves or God. So those who say, I just want to meditate and worship Krishna in Vrindavan. Okay. That's...
But that's what a lot of people think.
Yeah, I know.
That's what a lot of people actually, certainly the people I know, that has been their, that has been their viewpoint.
Yeah. And that's stupid, because that is the demonstration they actually don't know Krishna in truth.
So you've got to know the self effectively. That's the key. Can you please talk a little bit about that?
Oh, the Atman, yeah, of course. Krishna started the teachings of Bhagavad Gita already from chapter 2, explaining the nature of the Atman. He said it's not easy to understand. So if the Atman is not easy to understand, just imagine how easy it is to understand Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. It's not that cheap. That's why these people are described as Prakrita Sahajya. Prakrita Sahajya means materialistic simpletons. They think, I know Krishna. Yeah, he's, the color of a rain cloud, and, he's doing this, and he was in Vrindavan, and he was this, and he was that. No, you don't know Krishna. You just know the general story. But when Arjuna asked Krishna how we should meditate on you, what does Krishna tell Arjuna? He said, I am, Rasaha Mapsu. I am the taste of water. What does that has to do with the color of his skin, or where he was born, or what he was doing? People don't really understand what Krishna is. And Krishna himself is saying, you want to meditate on me? Here, this is how you meditate on me. But they don't care, because they're not really devotees of Krishna. They are devotees of a figure, a character they have created in their own mind, and they have stuck the label, this is Krishna. But they're not devotees of Krishna. I have no idea who and what Krishna is.
So this is fascinating, because most people, they, and in fact, I put myself in this category until very recently, was that Krishna is an outside figure. God is an outside figure.
Exactly.
So
yes.
We don't see the self as the path to realizing Krishna.
Yeah, but that means that we have not understood the Bhagavad Gita.
We meditate on an external figure that is Krishna. We don't consider the self as part of this path.
Yeah.
This is a very common mistake.
Of course, it's a typical Abrahamic materialistic Prakrita Sahajiya mistake.
Yeah, it's an Abrahamic projection that we see God as duality, separate from us.
Exactly.
Therefore, and then we struggle because we struggle because we have this on-off phenomenon with God, whereas I guess if you see God as, if you see the self as the pathway to realization,
we don't have the real experience.
Yes.
At most we have some emotional sentiment. Just like people who are going to a rock concert, or, who are patriotic and see the flag and, listen to the national anthem. But what is that? That, ecstasy, hair-raising thing, and you cry and you have shiver. But that's not the spiritual ecstasy.
No.
That's emotional.
Yes.
Which is okay. Yes. There's nothing wrong in being emotional and thinking about, Krishna is so nice with, the gopis and Sudama and this and that. Okay, that's okay. That's not a bad thing. But that's not, you cannot say that you actually know Krishna.
No.
Because you know the story. You read the Amar Krishna Katha, you watched the TV serial, or you read the Krishna book. You don't. It's not sufficient.
So what you're saying, Mataji, Krishna is acknowledging here that a lot of people don't see the self. They don't connect the self to Krishna.
Yeah.
They don't connect the Atman to Krishna. And he's acknowledging this problem here in this verse, that this is a problem that is not connecting the self. And he then explains that in later verses when he, in this chapter where he talks about exactly what you've said, I am the taste of water. So then you're there thinking, well, Krishna is there. People don't realize the significance of that. Anyway, I'll let you carry on.
Yeah, no, because, if you observe, you see this verse, it's very interesting. What is the perfection to which, among thousands of human beings, one may strive for? What is this siddha? It's liberation. It's transcendental realization.
But Mataji, again, this is where perhaps the English doesn't do it justice.
Definitely. That's why we need the Sanskrit. Yeah.
We read the term perfection. oh, you know, I'm going to be good, I'm going to be perfect.
Yeah, I'm going to be successful. I'm going to do all my duties properly and nicely. I'll be famous. I'll be rich. I'll be beautiful. Because that's the idea of perfection they have.
But the term Mataji is siddha, isn't it, effectively?
The siddha, yeah. Siddhi is not material perfection. And what is spiritual perfection? It's the realization of transcendence. Then you probably remember at the end, the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita, the chapter 18, I think verse 54, it says, Brahma bhuta prasannatma na sochatina kankshati samasarveshu bhutesha mad bhaktim labhate param. But from the Brahman realization, Brahma bhuta, the existence of Brahman, one can start to attain actual bhakti. Labhate means acquires, obtains. But only if we have situated ourselves on the level of transcendence. If we have transcended the limitations of material identifications and attachment. Because if we have not, we are not even striving for perfection. We cannot say we achieved. What perfection have we achieved? We have become sectarian bigots. That is that the perfection of life? Not really. Perfection is moksha. Dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Moksha is the perfection of life. When we attain moksha, we have attained, completed, the goals of human life.
But moksha is a state of consciousness.
Exactly. It's a realization of transcendence. We are liberated from the illusion of duality, from the material identifications and attachments. What is moksha otherwise? Yes. Brahma bhuta, naso chatina kankshati, samasarveshu bhutesha. How can you be equally disposed in seeing equally all the beings if you have not attained moksha, Brahma bhuta, the existence of Brahman? You cannot. It's not possible. Because you will continue to evaluate people based on their bodies. Yes. By people, I include the animals and the plants and all beings.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's the trick. The key. That's the the threshold.
Absolutely. I mean, again, the critics look at that verse and say, "Oh, what is the point of your path if only a small fraction of people know God?" But again, that's missing the point, isn't it? Basically?
Yeah, exactly. Because the point is only a few means. It doesn't mean that you are going to be a Nityabadha. Eternally conditioned, because only very few people can become sadhana siddha. And this is the stupidity of people who follow Bhagavad. Because Krishna is not saying that, some souls are material. All the Atmas are transcendental. All the Jivas are they're all Atmas. So this idea of Nityabadha, is a total speculation. Where is it coming from?
Again, that makes sense, and that takes us nicely to the next verse, which actually links us to the Kusha discussion that we had some time back as well, isn't it?
Exactly. So we have this verse is very interesting, and I quote it quite often. So verse 4, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and material identifications. All these are the 8 different forms of my Prakriti. The Mahamaya. Mahamaya manifests as the sum total of the material elements, the Mahatattva, which is also a manifestation of Brahman. It's the Karanodaka. This morning I was discussing with Drew about this, this specific subject. The creation of the material world happens in 2 phases. The first phase is the non-manifested Vishnu, Avyakta. Because Avyakta is one of the names of Vishnu. It's not that Vishnu is not Avyakta. Narayana, Paro Avyakta, Parovyakta.
Well, before you get any further, it's really interesting because the Bhagavad Gita talks of Vishnu being non-manifest in everything. So that's often ignored deliberately by people who wish to portray God,
of course, who are afraid. People who are afraid of being called Mayavadis.
Yes, correct.
Basically.
So that was really interesting. And then what's really interesting in what you've said now, for me, is that those 7 elements, 8 elements, they are still, his word is mine. They're still his energy. So those people who wish to degrade or negate the material world should understand that is, whilst the material world has imperfections, to us in our eyes, it's still Krishna's energy. I'd like you to talk a little bit about that.
Okay.
There is this viewpoint.
This point is, again, it's due to the materialistic Abrahamic and, anyway, not just Abrahamic, because the Gnostics were not Abrahamics, but they also had this idea. This dualism, this duality, they insist that the spirit and the matter are not compatible. It's like oil and water, they never mix. They're 2 completely different ingredients. Therefore, the material world is bad. It's a prison, it's the jail. And Mahamaya is the witch, is the bad witch, and
the
keeps us.
The best they might come up with is they might concede it's a quote unquote test, and that's about it, basically.
But that's not a fact, because if you go and see actually what Chaitanya was saying, I think we mentioned before, if you go and see the Chaitanya, I think it's in the Chaitanya Bhagavata, the episode when Chaitanya and his companions organized the event in the house of Chandrasekhara in Navadvip, that Chaitanya entered the mood, of Mahamaya, Durga, and after manifesting the consciousness of Durga, because the Durga consciousness, he specifically instructed his followers to pray to Durga. And the prayers of Chaitanya to Durga are very moving. They're the humblest, and the most transcendental, the most enlightening prayers. And Chaitanya says, if you don't, you are the one who can give the Krishna Bhakti. If you don't give us shelter, who will? Without your blessing, we cannot develop Krishna Bhakti. So how is that compatible with calling her a bad witch?
Well, do you know what it is, Mataji? I think that there's a perception that the material world is a imperfect.
Okay, that's, it's not imperfect. The point is that the material world has a purpose. It's not a jail, it's a school. It's not a mess that, oh, God made a mess, he got the things wrong, so he made this stupid material world. No. A school is made specifically for that purpose. Now, the Gnostics, for example, they were the main proponents of the idea that the material world was created by the bad God.
The demiurge.
The demiurge, which they call Yaldabaoth or Samael, or names like that, which means the stupid one, the confused one, the bad one, the evil one.
And can you clarify, Mataji, that we should never ever equate Brahma with the demiurge?
Oh, definitely, absolutely. That would be, like the trivial and triviale, like the embarazada and the pregnant.
Yes. No, I'm just conscious that people try to do quote-unquote comparative religion. Therefore,
when people try to do comparative religions and they don't know either religion, they will be making a huge mess.
Yes, absolutely.
Because there is the cultural superimposition. It's like, the example is when you want to know and talk about a mountain range. Okay. So you can take a lot of photos of the mountain range from different perspectives. But if you have not seen the actual mountain range, what you have is a number of pictures they're completely different from each other. So if you try to just superimpose them, you'll get a mess. In the same way, you take photos of the same person in different postures. So you get, a confusion, you get a mess, you get a monster.
Yes.
Because we need to actually have the direct experience. That's why it is said, traditionally it is said, that one should not listen from professional reciters. What is the meaning of professional reciters? It means people who are trying to sell the product for their material selfish benefit. That means that they're not realized. They have not realized what they're talking about. And if we listen from these people, we very likely become confused. So, yes. we can also listen from these people because it's not a big deal, but we should not take them as absolute authorities. We need to go to the source. We need to go to see the mountain range personally. We need to go and meet the person in all these pictures. We have to know that person directly.
And Mataji, the other again, I think another reason why people have come to this viewpoint is the translation in some sections of superior and inferior, the use of those words. So
para and apara.
So again, I think something's been lost in translation.
Oh, definitely. It actually doesn't mean superior and inferior. It means supreme and not supreme.
So could you please explain this nuance? Because a lot of your listeners will have read and will have got superior and inferior. Because people think, the material world is the inferior energy, and the spiritual world is the superior energy. So they have this hierarchical concept of it. And
exactly.
It'd be great to hear this from you.
Now, the difference between para and apara is that the para is supreme and we can say absolute and eternal also in the manifestations. That is why it is supreme. Now, the non-supreme means that the material elements, as described in this verse, the material energy, which consists of the material elements, is also spiritual. Because the material elements exist eternally. What does not exist eternally is the specific configurations that these material elements take, because they're always changing. The difference is that the spiritual, the transcendental, the supreme nature does not change. It's like the Atman is, it's unchangeable. It's eternal. It always exists exactly in the same way, in all the ways, simultaneously, which is difficult for people to understand if they are still identified with the limited, material manifestation that is their body and mind. That's why we need to understand the Atman in order to understand the Brahman. We need to understand the Brahman in order to understand the Atman. Aham Brahmasmi. Idam kal vidam.
So in essence, para and apara is supreme and perhaps not supreme.
Yeah, not supreme in the sense it's not, the manifestations, the forms manifested by the apara prakriti are temporary, they're illusory. Brahma Satya Jagan Mithya. It's not a fraud. It's not a deceit or a lie that wants to keep us conditioned. But
it's very easy to get
yeah, of course, yeah, because we are still influenced by the idea that there are two gods, the good God and the bad God, and the bad God is the prince of the world. That's what the Gnostics were talking about in Yadama. So, but it's still there in the Christian mentality, in the Islamic mentality, because they still have this idea that the devil made me do it, because the devil is powerful. No, there is no such thing as a devil.
Well, the big mistake is that evil comes from one being. It comes
from the bad God.
Whereas that is an excuse for evil people to go undetected, and for so-called good people to act to be really evil, to get away with a lot of things, because in reality, it's giving evil an easy pass by saying, whereas we believe that true evil is the Atman under immense amount of illusion.
Yeah.
We don't deny the existence of evil, but we see evil for what it is. We don't give evil an easy pass. We just see it as being not emanating from one nasty being, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. Evil, adharma, avidya, is just the absence of light. But not the absence because the light is not there. But it's rather the absence of our perception of light. That's why it's called illusion, because light is everywhere.
That's why you see all these people getting into so many problems by saying the Antichrist is coming, the Messiah is coming, because they have this viewpoint that evil originates from one being who's out to sort of, who competes with God, so to speak. Whereas the monotheistic path is Sanatana Dharma, because anything that deviates from Vedanta cannot be monotheistic, if that makes sense, Mataji, I guess.
Yeah, the point is that, they don't understand what omnipresent means. So omnipresent means that there is, the one without a second. It's not that the real one and the other is a bad guy. Vasudeva Sarvam iti. Everything. Vasudeva is everything. It's not the good guy that fights against the bad guy.
So this is, again, we've talked about the material elements, and that links nicely with the koshas. Because obviously, and we've had a discussion on that before. One aspect that perhaps wasn't apparent to me until very recently after our discussion was the macrocosm and the microcosm.
Yeah.
Could you please explain that just for your listeners so that people understand? Because I do know, since we talked about it, I went to the Prashna Upanishad, which is a beautiful series, but that touches on it. Could you please explain the macro and micro cosm for people, if that's okay?
Okay, that's not something to be explained in 5 minutes, but we can give a short answer and a long answer.
Yeah, the short answer is give people an idea.
Short answer is that the human life and the material world, especially the human life, is engineered in such a way that it gives it gives us the image of the Supreme. So it's, for example, the creation of the universe is very similar to the birth of a human being. And the creation of the material world is very similar to a father deciding to have a child. The one wanted to become many. And the first step in becoming many is becoming two. And that is the Maya that appears like duality, but is not. Because Purusha and Prakriti are one. Vishnu is not male. It's both. God is both male and female. So we are also, each one of us, human beings, is both male and female. We have the two energies. We have two hemispheres of the brain. We have the feminine side and the masculine side. The sun and the moon. And that's the purpose of yoga, to harmonize them so that we actually realize the Atman and we can realize the Bhagavan. Brahman and Paramatma and Bhagavan. You cannot separate the Purusha from the Prakriti. Because they're one. Brahman is both male and female. That is also very clearly established in the Upanishads. So, this is the idea of macrocosm and microcosm. Macrocosm is the Virat Purusha, the Virat Rupa, which is the manifestation of the material manifestation of Vishnu that Krishna shows Arjuna. When Arjuna asks Krishna how we should meditate on you, this is the form that Krishna shows Arjuna, the Virat Purusha. The Virat Purusha is the material manifestation of Vishnu. That goes even further back on the spiritual level. The manifestation of the forms of Vishnu are manifested through Yogamaya, which is why the Mother Goddess is called the Mother Goddess, because she is the mother of all the forms. Yadevi Sarvabhuteshu. The Rupa, Sarvarupa. The Mother Goddess is all the forms, is the one who gives all the forms. As Yogamaya, she's giving the forms to Vishnu. All the avatars, all the forms, even in the spiritual world, that are all manifested through Yogamaya. Bhakti is Yogamaya. So Yogamaya manifests not only the different forms of the names and the qualities and the rasas and everything. Without Yogamaya, nothing is manifested. Is that useful?
Yeah. That is why, I guess, just in India, Rupa is a very feminine name. And are you saying that therefore the Rupa is the female mother goddess that results in manifestation?
Yeah.
And form, that is why it's called the Virat Rupa.
Yes. Yeah, because it's both male and female. So the Rupa, there is no form, no Rupa without Maya, without the Mother Goddess. So either Yogamaya or Mahamaya, but it's always Maya, it's always the Mother Goddess. Because tell.
And on that note, for the macro and microcosm, you start with the what is known as the ego, it's commonly known as unfortunately the false ego sheep, or the Ananda Maya. That's the first, the first sign, or the first aspect of creation is that sheep, both macro and in the microcosm.
Yeah. And our purpose in the sadhana bhakti is to develop the Siddha Deha. Moving from the Mahamaya through the blessings of Mahamaya, coming to the point of engaging under Yogamaya. Yogamaya is Durga, is not someone else. Subhadra Durga is the same person, Yogamaya. Okay.
Yes, that makes complete sense, Mataji. I think that takes us nicely to because we've talked about the so-called quote-unquote superior and inferior energies of the Lord. And I think that takes us nicely to, I think, the crux of chapter 7.
Which is, exactly. Next verse is talking about the param. O mighty Arjuna, know that besides the lower prakriti, lower in the sense of apara, there is also another, the living beings by which the universe is upheld, which means that the transcendental, the spiritual manifestation, it's not that the living beings are Yogamaya, but the living beings, the Jivatmas, are manifested by Yogamaya. Okay, I think we can discuss more about this tomorrow.
Yes, we can. But it brings us nicely, actually, to the next verse, because when Shri Krishna talks about "I am the taste of water," I think it's a nice place to stop, because it takes us nicely then into what I think is the real crux of chapter 7. The bit where the neophyte can sometimes look look at it and think, why is Krishna going into all this detail about what he is? That can sometimes appear a bit confusing, and I think this would be a nice point to sort of stop today and maybe resume tomorrow.
We resume tomorrow, because otherwise much more than 1 hour is difficult for people to focus.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you for your time and your seva, Mataji. It's been a very good discussion.
Thanks to you. We'll see. Wait, Jai Shimanara, let me stop the. Oops.